Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're streaming the show live on those two stations, streaming apps. They each have one. They're both equally great and equally free. Free to download and free to use, so highly recommend that. And if we have some maintenance for our on-air signal on Extra Sports like we had today, guess what? Streaming app. That comes in handy. Of course, you can also watch the show live, as more and more of you are every single day, anywhere you scroll. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. Most of the time, it's going to be you and me. 719-247-1313. However, very excited to welcome Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 back onto the program. I suppose she didn't leave, but it's been a bit since Jess has been on, and we'll talk some Broncos camp with her because she has been up there. That's coming up next hour. As far as you being my guest, 719-247-1313. You can call or text in your thoughts or drop a comment on the live stream. I was eagerly awaiting Sean Payton's return to the podium after yesterday's training camp fight, in which Bo Nix was pulling on the leg of Nick Bonito to get him off of the pile, and it all started because Malcolm Roach knocked over Bo Nix. It was a whole thing. Sean Payton didn't speak yesterday. Vance Joseph said that you can't be crossing the line because, in his words, it's against the rules. But I want to hear from Sean Payton, because my theory was I don't think Sean Payton likes it. I'm not a fan of fighting in practice. I don't think Sean Payton is either. So today, Sean Payton, pretty early on in his media availability, was asked about the fight.
Let's call it a tussle.
A tussle? All right.
After I got a chance to watch the film, there were no punches. It was just a tussle.
Okay. Tussle. Downplaying it. Why is he downplaying it? I don't know. Maybe do we have to define what a fight is? I feel like we tried to do that yesterday, because we had a skirmish between two Broncos players. And at that time, Sean Payton said what he doesn't like is when the next person comes over and gets involved. That's when it escalates. And that's exactly what you had yesterday. Feels like he's moving the goalposts a little bit here. He don't want to acknowledge that his team was fighting with one another. And I feel like I'm the overwhelming majority of there's no overwhelming majority when it comes to being anti-fighting. So there are plenty of people that look at what happened yesterday at Broncos camp and go, this is awesome. I'm not one of them. But there's no real shame for Sean Payton if he just admits that his team was fighting with each other. But I feel like he doesn't want that on his team. Because I truly believe this deep down, that Sean Payton and I agree on this. We see eye to eye on this subject. It is counterproductive. If it happens more than once, it shows a team that doesn't have their priorities in the right place, and it's unnecessarily risking injury. Calvin Throckmorton's head was bleeding. Like, that was a fight. If Sean Payton wants to downplay it, then that's his prerogative, but he's not going to fool me. That was a fight. Now, Sean Payton, in true Sean Payton fashion, did use whatever you want to call what happened yesterday as a teaching moment.
We covered last night, what's new from an officiating standpoint, this is our first season where they can go to replay in New York and remove a player. So with that being the case, it's going to be hard to be the guy that gets, the first jab. They're going to be able to go to replay and get it right. And so we discussed that. We had examples of shoving, and then, the officials just getting bumped, you're ejected. There's, all of it we kind of covered, especially with the replay now being changed, and it'll be the first season we have that.
Props to the video people with the Denver Broncos that they just so happen to be able to cobble together a highlight reel between the fight and film session to be able to show enough clips to the team to show them what not to do so they don't get ejected this season. Almost feels like Sean Payton had it already and was just waiting for the moment, understanding that these are grown men, very prideful men, very competitive, very macho, don't like getting pushed around, and they might fight back. I mean, and I said yesterday, everybody gets one before I start really looking with a critical eye on what's going on. And that's also, and that part of that is acknowledging that you're probably going to have one. It's probably going to happen. So I think Sean Payton had that highlight reel, or whatever you want to call it, already packed away somewhere, ready to bring out if the occasion called for it. And yesterday was that day. But Sean Payton was asked kind of along those same lines, like, do you wait for the Broncos to be involved in something like this before you show something, or do you want to be proactive and show them that and try to keep them from getting in trouble in a game? And here's Sean Payton.
They just need to know how it's going to be officiated. And look, every one of these games, like, I said to him last night, let me know the game where we're fighting. And then obviously then we're not as concerned about winning that game. And then, I'll kind of measure up the head coach and see where we go. And, we can all get ejected, but the games are too important.
Thank you. Took us a little while, but we got there. I told you Sean Payton and I agree. He's trying to downplay it, but at the end there, I've talked about the softer side of Sean Payton that we've seen, the evolution of Sean Payton. He's giving up play calling duties. He's taking the team out to go see Spider-Man. Like, there's some evolution, but if you keep pressing him, that old Sean Payton will come out. Sean Payton did not like what happened yesterday in practice, and he agrees with me that it is counterproductive and it is signs of a malfunctioning football team. So I'm just glad we got there. And we're there, and now we can move on. Except we'll just move on to other fights. Because here's what has happened the last couple of days. Max Crosby, or just not last couple of days, yesterday. So the Broncos have their intra-squad kerfuffle. Max Crosby fights the Houston Texans, and the Dallas Cowboys and New Orleans Saints got into a fight at their joint practice. Brock Reichsteiner, who you may remember, I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. He got suspended for the first 6 games by the league. We don't, I think, know yet what it is, but when I told you that he is the son of former professional wrestler Scott Steiner, you start to make assumptions. Now, here's no assumption. Brock Reichsteiner literally body slammed a Cowboys player in Jalen Thompson. That happened yesterday. The son of a former professional wrestler body slammed a player on the other team at a joint practice. Elsewhere, at the same training camp joint practice, Alvin Kamara injured himself and is probably not going to play the season opener for the New Orleans Saints. And Tyler Biadasz for the LA Chargers is now going to be out like forever because he got hurt in the inter squad practice, the joint practice with the San Francisco 49ers. So what am I getting at here? I think there's a reason why Sean Payton isn't doing the joint practices. And I think what happened yesterday across the NFL is part of the reason. Multiple fights, guys body slamming one another, and the injuries. And the thought was joint practices are better than games because you can control more. The games, it's a game. Guys are going full tilt and you can't script anything out and you leave yourself open to getting more injuries and stuff. But I tell you what, I don't remember a lot of fights going on in a preseason game. Sean Payton, though, still very much about the preseason. I think what's going on here is that maybe joint practices aren't that superior to preseason games in terms of preparation for the upcoming season, as we may have once thought. But my overarching thing is that because there's a discussion about all the injuries, the fights, everything like that, and then the utility of these preseason games, I just don't think there's a best practice. I just don't think there is. I think it is next to impossible to get through the preseason preparations for an NFL season without having a laundry list of injuries and a handful to a half a dozen fights either within a team or against a different team. The risk is assumed across the board. But I think Sean Payton is trying to mitigate some of that by getting rid of the joint practices. And look, the preseason games aren't going anywhere. They shortened it by one so they could extend the regular season. I suppose in a future where the NFL players agree that they're going to play a 20-game season, then maybe they won't have any more preseason games. But until that day comes along, the NFL is going to want its preseason games. So those aren't going away. And I think the calculation that Sean Payton is making in his mind is, well, we got to do the preseason games. So I got to incur the risk of my players getting hurt in the preseason games anyway. Why am I going to add on top of it these joint practices? But you just can't, because I'm seeing this conversation going throughout the NFL. You're not going to be able, there's no best practice. There really isn't. Every one of these activities that you do during the preseason in a sport like football, tempers are inevitably going to flare because there aren't the stakes, right? Like Sean Payton can talk about, get kind of mad about a hypothetical fight that they don't care about winning. Like that stuff doesn't happen as much during the regular season, with Jalen Carter being a recent exception to that rule. But you have no stakes, but yet all the regular things that you get in football, the hitting, the blocking, the cheap shots, all of that kind of stuff is going to happen. And guys are going to get more angry about it when they're not keeping score or the score doesn't count. So the conversation to me about joint practices or preseason games, like, just pick your favorite flavor of it's not even ice cream. Pick your favorite flavor of gruel and just eat it, get through it, and get to the other side. Because we got fights, we got injuries in preseason games and in joint practices and regular practices. And I think that's what adds to Sean Payton's frustration, is that he tried to mitigate the risk of fighting by not inviting another team to joint practice with the Broncos, and yet the Broncos are still fighting. Boys will be boys, I think, is the moral to the story. That, and I was right. I was right about Sean Payton not liking what happened yesterday. But, I almost think like the best way to go about it, the more I think about it, no joint practices and don't play your starters in the preseason. Because Sean Payton said it himself. What's the most important thing about preseason?
Teams have different philosophies. We have a philosophy, and I'm sure Matt knows what he wants to get done, or what he's trying. Again, the number one goal is still evaluating the right 53. That I can't emphasize that enough. And so that's the importance of these additional reps and games.
And the right 53 minus the 22 to 30 guys that are going to make the roster. Right? So really what Sean Payton's talking about is the back half of the roster. So why not just play the back half of the roster? Why put Bo Nix out there? Why put Cortland Sutton out there like he's going to do on Friday? You want to mitigate risk as much as you can. No joint practices, and don't play your starters in the preseason. But I don't think any coach will want to abandon all of it. So it's really pick your poison. You're going to have injuries, and you're probably going to have fights, even within your own team. 719-247-1313. With that out of the way, let's move on with the rest of the show. You may have heard Jalen Waddle made quite the play today at training camp. We'll talk about that as we move forward. Your thoughts on this Wednesday? Very welcome at 719-247-1313. This just in. Friday's show here in just a couple of days. I will be at Trainwreck on Friday in advance of the Broncos' second preseason game as they are taking on the Green Bay Packers. So just a couple of blocks south of Widener Field. You're probably familiar with the establishment. Gigantic television. Sand volleyball pits, a great backyard spread where you could go out. It's easily one of my favorite places in town. So I was thrilled to hear that the folks at Trainwreck wanted me to come out and do my show on Friday. So I will be there from 3 to 6. Love for you to come out and join us. You're looking for a spot. I know you are, to watch the Broncos and the Packers. Come hang out Friday afternoon at Trainwreck. So Sean Payton, a lot of people are loving on the comment that Sean Payton made about if his players plan on getting in a fight and getting ejected, clearly they don't care about winning that game. So let him know, and then he'll measure up the head coach, which begs the question, how many NFL head coaches could Sean Payton beat up? Like which? Like, let's start in the AFC West. Could Sean Payton take Jim Harbaugh? I don't think that he could. I mean, Jim Harbaugh seems kind of dorky with his khakis and who's got it better than us, but that dude, you remember him as a player? So definitely not Jim Harbaugh. Andy Reid, give me a break. No way. I'll take Andy Reid all day. Clint Kubiak. And in that way, it's not that different from how I view the division in the AFC West setting up, is kind of based on, you know, which coaches could take the other one in a fight, at least from the standpoint of Clint Kubiak is last. So Sean Payton could definitely take Kubiak, Joe Brady. Let's actually, you know what? We got nothing but time. Let's look at the Broncos schedule. How many coaches in the NFL could Sean Payton? So we just want to know which games the Broncos could, one, see, it's a perfect storm here because one, to Sean Payton's point, they can't care about winning that game. So no big games. So actually the AFC West, that's probably out. Those are divisional games. You don't want to throw those away by getting in a fight. So you got to find games that look like they don't matter. And then you got to take that list and figure out, because you don't want to get Sean Payton manhandled by the opposing coach. So like, for instance, Tennessee would be one that immediately comes to mind. They're not on the Broncos' schedule this year. But I'm just saying, like, that would be a game that probably doesn't have a lot of meaning. But the problem is Robert Saleh is the head coach of the Tennessee Titans now. So that's not one that you do. So let's go through this. So week 1, Kansas City can't be that one, right? Divisional game on the road. Got to care about that one. It's not. Jacksonville at home? No, because I think Jacksonville and Denver might be two teams battling for a wild card spot, so it can't be that one. The Rams week 3? That's one of those showcase games. You know, Broncos think that they're a Super Bowl contender. Everybody believes that the Rams are a Super Bowl contender. Can't do that. Go to San Francisco. Could Sean Payton take Kyle Shanahan? That might be one. I think that might be at the nexus. But if the Broncos scuffle out of the gate. If they go like 1-2, they can't afford to let that San Fran game slip away. So maybe that's not it. Chargers divisional game, defending Super Bowl champions. And by the way, Mike McDonald, you don't want to mess with that, dude. So we move on. Oh, here's the perfect one. Week 7. Mike LaFleur, not to be confused with Matt, who's coaches the Packers. That would be the one. Arizona, low stakes. You could probably get a few players ejected and still win that football game. I don't know. Mike LaFleur's a new coach. I need to learn more about him before I could give you the tale of the tape between he and Sean Payton. But that feels like a good one. Canales, a couple weeks after that, because it would be Kansas City. And then Dave Canales, the Carolina game. I'm just trying to help. Clint Kubiak, again, a divisional game. Mike McCarthy. But again, Pittsburgh, that game might have some stakes. Joe Hafley, he doesn't look like a guy you want to mess with. Aaron Glenn, no. And then you got Kubiak again. You got Joe Brady, but that's a game that might mean a lot. Mike Vrabel. Don't want to mess with him. I feel like there's some kind of a joke there, but I'm not really thinking of it right now. And then Harbaugh. I think it's week 7. Week 7 or week 9. Carolina or Arizona on the road. That would be if the Broncos wanted to start a fight and have Sean Payton size up the guy on the other side. I mean, Dave Canales is fit, but he's lean. I don't know how he would be in a fight. I think those are probably the 2 weeks. It's just too, but it's like I keep saying about the fighting in training camp. This season's too important. Broncos should not be fighting in any one of these games. And they shouldn't be fighting each other in practice. They got a lot of history that they got to fight against this year. Looking at some of I saw something earlier that with how thin the margins were for the Denver Broncos last year, right? How close they were, how thin that line between winning and losing was to win as many games as they did. The Broncos, if they were to surpass their win total this year, which is, I believe, 8.5. It doesn't seem like a big number. They would be the first team in the NFL history to be coming off the season that they had, winning that many close games, and surpassing their Vegas win total the year after. Just one more thing that they're going to be battling against. But it's just showing how improbable the Broncos run was last year during the regular season and how you can expect some regression to the mean. Like, I don't think that there's any doubt that there's going to be regression to the mean. The Broncos are not winning more games than they did last year. Can we agree on this? They're not winning more games than they did last year. The question is, how much regression will there be? Not if, how much? Because they can regress a little bit and still be a playoff team. And still be right in the thick of things. But there's going to be regression. So I don't really think that the Broncos should be fighting in any of their games. Every game this season, precious. 719-247 1313. Coming up next, usually we talk about year 3 being the year, right, with quarterbacks. Year 3 is when quarterbacks pop. What if I told you that is no longer the case? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. I've been hearing something as we get back to serious football business, enough of this contemplating which NFL head coaches Sean Payton could beat up. I keep hearing an old adage when it comes to young quarterbacks, and it's especially pertinent this year, not just because of Bo Nix, but because of the entire 2024 draft class, which is so far, save for two guys, looking pretty promising, right? Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. Michael Penix barely hanging on. J.J. McCarthy, who the heck knows what's going to happen with him next. But still, if those four guys, Bo, Drake, Caleb, and Jaden, all continue to be good, this will be as fruitful a quarterback draft class as we have had in many, many moons. And I think more recently, you look 2018, right? That was Baker, Allen, Lamar. Yeah, so clear that one. You know the other one. You know the other one very well because there was a Bronco quarterback involved in that draft class as well. So a lot of optimism surrounding this 2024 draft class. But I keep hearing something over and over and over again, and that is the year 3 breakout. It used to be very much a thing. Emphasis on used to. Right? We just heard from Davis Webb a couple of weeks ago talking about Josh Allen. Right? When Josh Allen became the runner-up to the MVP and became the Josh Allen that we know and love today, that was year 3. Troy Aikman, historically, year 3, when he really got going. But I actually think that that's not a thing anymore. And look at this 2024 draft class as an example. How much, not just Bo Nix, all of them, right? Let's take these 4 guys. How much better do you legitimately believe each one of them will be? Drake May was the runner-up for MVP last year. How much higher is his ceiling? Caleb Williams and what he did last year, Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying that there's not more, right? Lamar Jackson is a great example. Lamar Jackson was a certain kind of quarterback, and he was great, and then when he linked up with Todd Monken, all of a sudden this guy starts to win from the pocket, and now Lamar Jackson improves and is a higher level of quarterback. So I'm not saying that every single one of these guys, we've already seen the best we're ever going to see from them. That's not what I'm saying. But did we already see the breakout? Did we already see these guys pop, which is kind of crazy because for Caleb, it was year 2. For Jaden Daniels, it was year 1. Bo Nix, year 2. But I actually think we saw the big jump from these guys. I mean, think about it. CJ Stroud was terrific as a rookie. He hasn't been able to replicate it since. That was his breakout. Patrick Mahomes, it took him 2 years, right? Year 2, he's an MVP candidate. He's an MVP, I should say. Lamar Jackson, even though he evolved his game many years after, Lamar Jackson popped in year 2. Joe Burrow popped in year 2. I think in just a short time, we have already seen the year 3 being the breakout year become an antiquated notion. And it goes exactly into what I talked about last week regarding how many, and I've been talking about really during training camp, how many good quarterbacks there are. Football as a whole, both at every level, is doing a better job of developing their high-end talent. And part of the reason is because these college coaches have these guys longer. And Bo Nix is a perfect example of this. The amount of snaps he got at the collegiate level made him as ready as any rookie quarterback we have ever seen to start week 1 of his rookie year. And he's been very good since. These guys have such better coaching. They're staying in college longer. There's this, this along with the Sean McVay effect, where these teams are looking for the next offensive genius perpetually. That always helps these young quarterbacks. I think this is all a credit to the NFL. The idea that the NFL is failing. I know there's J.J. McCarthy. There's always going to be an exception to a rule. But if you really look at the numbers and look at the state of quarterbacking in the NFL, and I'm not even talking about compared to 30 years ago, I'm talking compared to 10 years ago. It's almost 10 years ago that Josh Allen hit in year 3. Right? Lamar was in that class. He hit in year 2. But I mean, it's less than a decade ago. We still had the thought that it was year 3, and we saw numerous quarterbacks really hit in year 3. And every year that's gone by, like these guys are performing at a higher level earlier in their career. So as we look at this 2024 class, including Bo Nix, I mean, how much higher is that ceiling? How much room is there still to grow? Because when Davis Webb made those comments about Josh Allen and Bo Nix being similar, he wasn't talking about, the improvement of Bo Nix. It was just more the understanding of when to use their legs. That's what he was talking about, but it got us thinking about the huge step forward that Josh Allen took in year 3. That his decision-making was a big part of it. Bo Nix can't possibly make that kind of a jump. Look at Josh Allen's numbers in year 2 versus year 3. There's no possible way that Bo Nix is going to have a similar jump. It's just not mathematically possible. He will throw as many touchdown passes this year as Matthew Stafford did last year. He will complete over 75% of his passes. He will throw for more yards than any quarterback in the NFL did last year. Like, it's not going to happen statistically. Because he's already made that jump. But we're just waiting for year 3 because we've been trained to wait for year 3, and it's also about being patient. Right? You don't want to bail on a guy 2 years in, J.J. McCarthy. Maybe they do want to bail on a guy 2 years in, Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they do want to bail 2 years in. But in a more general sense, You don't want to write the book on a guy 2 years into the league. So we wait. We wait for year 3. I don't think we need to wait for year 3. I think we already saw it. Now, what does that mean for this year? That means I don't expect Bo Nix's numbers to look a whole lot different than they did last year. But if I told you that Bo Nix was going to put up virtually the same numbers that he did last year, do you think that the Broncos could still compete for a Super Bowl? I think that's going to be the question that you have to ask yourself, because I think these quarterbacks are hitting earlier, which the unfortunate byproduct, and maybe Lamar Jackson is a good example of this, although he's well into his career by now. But the unfortunate byproduct is a couple years after this, people are going to be going, is that all? I mean, this guy's only in year 4, year 5. Where's the more? Well, there's not anymore, because they were so good in year 1 and year 2 that they can't build on it much more than that. So I think later down the road, I think you're going to start to see maybe some more criticism of Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Because it said, well, in year 2, you were this. It doesn't look like you've gotten much better. You're still waiting for them to get to the next level. There's no, they got to the next level. It was just year 1 to year 2. It was week 4 to week 16. That's the growth that these young quarterbacks are taking now. And again, it is a credit. It is a credit to them. It is a credit to the coaching that they have in college. It is a credit to the coaching they're getting at the NFL level. None of this is a bad thing unless you're saying that Bo Nix or Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels need to be much better than they were Caleb and Bo last year, Jaden Daniels year 1, unless you're saying those guys have to be much better than that, or Drake May for that matter last year, unless you're saying in order for their teams to win, they have to be much better than that, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think you take it on a case-by-case basis. Right? And I kind of look at Bo Nix as maybe the one guy that you look at and say, well, maybe he needs to do a little bit more. I don't know how Jaden Daniels can do more than he did his rookie year. And Drake May being the runner-up for MVP, I don't know how high a level we expect Drake May to go from here. But I think the developmental arc of quarterbacks has been shortened significantly because of all of these different factors that are in play right now when it comes to the way that quarterbacks are developed and the opportunities they're getting at the collegiate level. I mean, if they're not playing, they're not waiting anymore. You're not waiting behind somebody. If you're waiting, then you're transferring. You're wasting maybe a year. You're not waiting 2 or 3 years to finally get your opportunity to start. Some guys won't even choose a school that they can't start right away, but the guys that are willing to sit behind a well-established starter at a major institution for 1 year, you better be giving them the job in year 2 or they're gone. So they're playing many, many more games. So they're more prepared for the NFL. And in the NFL, everybody wants the the offensive genius, the next Sean McVay, which caters to the quarterback, helps them develop faster. I think it makes sense. I think this 2024 class, for the most part, has already had their breakout season. It's just how much more can they add on top of it after? Maybe having a shiny new number one wide receiver could help. That topic regarding Bo Nix next. Welcome in. Thanks for stopping by, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you are watching the show anywhere you scroll. Speaking of places that you scroll, I say this every so often, and people think I'm joking. I'm really not. Ask my children. They do not respect me under a certain number of followers on social media. So please, help your boy out. At Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingerwatch on Instagram. Be a handy way for us to converse during the show or outside of show hours as well. Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11, going to be my guest in less than 20 minutes. In the meantime, your thoughts welcome at 719-247-1313. The Jalen Waddle hype got a little derailed over the past week or so because he had to leave practice with a soft tissue injury and now is just working himself back onto the practice field. But I'm happy to report for you Broncos fans that the hype train is back moving down the tracks, because not only did Jalen Waddle complete a 60-yard pass play from Bo Nix, he beat Pat Surtain to do it. So if that doesn't get Broncos fans hyped, I don't know what will. Jalen Waddle beat Pat Surtain for a 60-yard touchdown. At least I think it was a touchdown. We can't see it, which begs the question: if Jalen Waddle beats Pat Surtain for a 60-yard play and no one is allowed to film practice, did it really happen? But Sean Payton, very strict about the filming thing, said today, what if they want to use that play again? Football coaches are so fair is fair. I just complimented Sean Payton and other coaches for doing a better job with young quarterbacks today than even 10 years ago. But I have to be fair and say the just level of paranoia is just at a I can't understand. I can't fathom being that paranoid. That some blogger has a shaky video from practice where Bo Nix hits Jalen Waddle for a 60-yard touchdown, and Steve Spagnuolo is going to take that and be able to dissect it for week one, and Jalen Waddle is going to be completely shut down by the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, give me a break here. Come on. But the rule is the rule. What do I always say? If you don't like the rule, try to get the rule changed. But in the meantime, the rule is the rule and you have to follow. So we will never see the Jalen Waddle 60-yard pass play where he beat Pat Surtain. But we were told about it, and Sean Payton acknowledged that it happened. Here's Sean Payton on how a play like that happens.
For a play like that to develop, it's got to be a different protection, because that's happening deeper down the field. You guys remember the Super Bowl where Elway came off of a boot and there was this deep comeback post that we had never seen before, and Mike had seen the safety cut the over route, and that was kind of something that they put together during the game. And when you watched it, you had to go back and say, well, it couldn't have been a pocket protection because it's too long to hold it, and it wasn't. So that one was a different protection. And when you're a corner and you get past this 12 to 15 yard mark, you're out of the double move business. And so that's a little different to cover.
So in pure Sean Payton fashion, it was not the athleticism and outright speed of Jalen Waddle, it was the play design. That tracks. If you're wondering about the play Sean Payton is referring to, here's how it sounded on Fox way back in the day. This is the Broncos' second Super Bowl victory against the Atlanta Falcons. The incomparable Pat Summerall on the call.
Denver's first play after the missed field goal. Elway going deep, and he's got Rod Smith. That Smith's gone.
And that was it. That was the end of Pat Summerall's call. It was a Super Bowl. It was a game-changing play. From there, the Broncos never looked back. Ended up blowing out the Atlanta Falcons. It was a huge play in the game, and that's how the legendary Pat Summerall called it. But that's also part of the evolution of the NFL, the way it's called. Like, Gus Johnson could not exist in that era. Now all play-by-play guys go absolutely berserk over every play that is made. I should know. One of my many gigs is being a play-by-play guy. But that's how it sounded. That was the play to Rod Smith. And the NFL films, it actually, that comment by Sean Payton sent me down a rabbit hole. And I watched the NFL films of that play. And Mike Shanahan is being interviewed. Plus, you have the sound on the sideline. They knew it was going to hit. They absolutely knew it. And Mike Shanahan's sitting there in a chair and explaining that they knew it was going to work. And it was because Eugene Robinson, who we would find out later, maybe didn't have his mind completely focused on the game that weekend. Go ahead and go back and do some research on what happened to him. But he kept cutting over. And Shanahan and Elway knew it. They knew it on the sideline that play was going to be a sure touchdown. And it was. And it broke that Super Bowl open and allowed John Elway to ride off into the sunset with an end of a career that has not been replicated by anyone before or since in NFL history. So a little nostalgia, perhaps, when the Broncos break that out again at some point this season. Be like, I remember that. I remember that in the Super Bowl, and I remember when Sean Payton dialed up that play in training camp on August 19th. Maybe you won't remember the second one. Second part of that. But the moral to the story is that Jalen Waddle is back playing, and he is the hype is continuing with him. But going back to the point I made before the top of the hour on how we're seeing quarterbacks hitting that breakout season earlier than year 3. I don't know that adding Jalen Waddle is going to greatly increase Bo Nix's numbers. And I actually think that one of the guys that benefits, and there's no doubt Bo Nix benefits from Jalen Waddle, don't misunderstand me. I continue to say that the happiest guy, even though you may not, it may hit your ear wrong, it's Courtland Sutton. Jalen Waddle being on this team, Courtland Sutton has got to be the happiest guy. Because he is not going to be the number one guy on the scouting report in the pass game. It's going to be Jalen Waddle. And Courtland Sutton will have more favorable matchups. I think he's still going to be relied upon heavily in the red zone. With Jalen Waddle, maybe the Broncos will get to the red zone a little bit more than they did last year. And that'll be Courtland Sutton time. And I think there's a trickle-down effect. I think Courtland Sutton's probably the happiest guy, but It opens up things for Marvin Mims. The ability to unleash him on those handful of plays that the Broncos like to do on a game-to-game basis. The acquisition of Jalen Waddle, I just haven't looked at it as much as through the lens of, well, now look how much better Bo Nix is going to be. It's how much better all the other receiving weapons for the Denver Broncos will benefit. Everyone now slotted into a more proper spot on the depth chart. That's what I keep looking at as the primary benefit of adding a Jalen Waddle. But yes, Jalen Waddle can be productive and help Bo Nix be more productive. My point is, I just don't expect Jalen, before getting back to the, year 3 being the year that pops, that normally that's when, like Josh Allen, keep using him as the example, Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs. And that helped him, right? And now we're looking at Drake May adding A.J. Brown and Bo Nix adding Jalen Waddle. Yes, it will help them. But I think we've seen these guys already pop to the point that they actually, to their credit, didn't even need an elite number 1 wide receiver to help them get there. They did it already. And now it's just how much more can an A.J. Brown help? How much more can a Jalen Waddle help? But it's just, I don't think with Bo Nix or with Caleb or any of these guys, I just don't think you're going to see a ton more. And that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a bad thing. Again, it doesn't mean that. Because I think for all of these guys, if Jaden Daniels can replicate for multiple years what he was as a rookie, he's going to be viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. If Caleb Williams does what he did last year for multiple years, he's going to be viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. If Drake May, obviously, finishes runner-up for MVP in multiple years, he's going to be viewed as one of the best quarterbacks. But I go back to Bo Nix and I say, maybe Jalen Waddle needs to. I don't think there's another year where Bo Nix pops, but I think there needs to be if Bo Nix is going to get to that level. Is the way I would look at it. Because I do think it's Drake, Caleb, and Jaden Daniels who are vying for who ultimately, by the end of their careers, is the best of that class. And I think Bo Nix can be looked at as a good long-term NFL quarterback, but I just don't think Bo Nix is on the level of those other guys. Especially Caleb and Jaden. I would probably put Jaden Daniels and Caleb on their own tier above Drake May. And then Drake May above Bo Nix. It's tough because you could find other draft classes through the years that if you inserted Bo Nix into that, you'd be like, Bo Nix is the best quarterback in his class. And look, in the end, do we have a lot of debates anymore about who is the best in that class with Elway and Marino? I suppose we do every once in a while, but guess what? They all got in the Hall of Fame. But I'm eager to see what this Nix Waddle connection actually does. But I think the beneficiaries are the guys in Jalen Waddle's wide receiver room. Because I feel like Bo Nix was able to put up some pretty solid numbers, even without Jalen Waddle. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7. 1313. Coming up next, Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 has been regularly up at Broncos camp. What has she seen? Who has stuck out to her? And maybe some expectations for Bo Nix and company in their preseason game Friday night against the Green Bay Packers. That is next. So the hype train for Jalen Waddle back running down the tracks. Preseason game number 1 couldn't have gone much better for the Denver Broncos. So all is good for football fans around here. Joining me now to discuss Broncos camp is Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11. Jessica, I'm glad that you finally answered one of my many requests to have you on the show. How are you?
Oh man, I just felt like it was time. You just wouldn't stop, bothering me, texting me all the time, just constantly wanting my presence on your show. So throwing you a bone today.
And she laughs, but it is 100% true. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, I'm kind of sad that camp's come to an end, but, also excited. Season's almost here. And yeah, it's that time of year, Ryan. So feeling pretty good.
From the times that you have been up there, who has stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I'll probably sound a little bit like a broken record just in terms of what all the other players are saying, what Sean Payton has said, what maybe people have heard from the Kay Adams show. But Pat Bryant has absolutely stood out to me. I mean, he's kind of been a play of the day kind of guy almost every day, just making big plays in team drills. And, no matter what it is, I really like how Davis Webb has kind of been showing off what Pat Bryant has to offer. I mean, Sean Payton loves how he's got strong hands. He's fast. He's shifty. And you can tell he's got a really good connection as well with Bo Nix already. So excited to see just kind of how the Broncos are going to fit him in this season. When you're talking about Jalen Waddle, we're talking about where Courtland Sutton fits in. And I liked how he did fit into that first series in that first preseason game. So, everything that he's shown in camp has been very impressive. He looks a lot more confident out there, even, talking to the media at the podium. Just looks like he's really feeling comfortable in year 2.
But you bring up a great point. They do bring in Jalen Waddle, who I think Broncos fans would like Bo Nix to target quite a bit. We know that Bo Nix loves Courtland Sutton. We all want the Denver Broncos to be more committed to the run game. And you see where I'm going with this, Jessica. Yeah. You start to go down the list. There is only one football. So is there somebody that you look at that, maybe is in the regular group, but may not have as big of an impact as people think? Or is there somebody that has maybe been in the mix the last couple of years that may be the odd man out here?
Well, I don't know what you would consider the regular group, but I definitely see once again Marvin Mims kind of falling to the back of the line. I mean, he's had some injuries in camp. He's been working on the side field. It's tough because he's also had some really great moments in camp and some flashy plays, big catches, touchdowns, all of that. And this is a guy that's been pushing for more playing time as a receiver, kind of getting out of that special teams. I don't know if you want to call it a slump, but, he's been asking for more involvement in the offense. And I definitely feel like there is just no place for him anymore. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with him in the return game and what that looks like, because we know his strengths there. But yeah, I mean, even if you go above that, then there's Troy Franklin, right? And he's had some good flashy moments as well. And Bo Nix talked about how, he is his, longest teammate and, a brother to him, and how long they've worked together and their chemistry. Where does someone like him fit in? So, Davis Webb talked yesterday about even the issues with the running backs room. They have 3 strong guys there. And that's a place where he's going to lean on Sean Payton to kind of help him in those game planning meetings. How are we going to fit all these guys in, give them their touches, make everyone happy? But of course, the priority is, calling the right plays, winning the games. So I obviously don't have the answers. I don't think they have the answers, but if you're listening to what Davis Webb said in regards to the running backs, and if you put that on the wide receivers, he basically believes that it's all going to work itself out. So, maybe everyone's looking really strong right now and we get through these next 2 preseason games and somebody shows that they, aren't as strong. It'll just kind of start to show, we'll start to kind of be able to order things out as we get closer to week 1.
To that end, as far as the running, well, just as far as everybody that we're talking about goes, who stood out the most to you in the win over the Falcons?
Man, well, I still can picture that Jonah Coleman run where he's bouncing off tackles.
That's where I would go.
Yeah. I think it's hard to not say him, and the coaches are still raving about it too. Like they saw that play and they're like, we're good. We saw everything we needed to see from Jonah Coleman. So yeah, I think he's been really exciting. His camp has been excellent as well. Not to switch the topic, Ryan, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, because from what we've seen in camp already, it's like, man, you double pinky promised all the media that you were going to play every single game, and you're already having some sort of tweak or issue. So obviously it's great to feel like you have that backup in these young guys and RJ Harvey as well. But it's hard not to root for J.K. Dobbins with the personality that he has and just the spirit that he has in his game as well.
Yeah, but I feel like, if J.K. Dobbins were to get hurt again, I can see a scenario in which, even if before that Jonah Coleman is technically RB3, that all of a sudden he kind of jumps RJ Harvey a little bit. Like when I watch Jonah Coleman run, it seems like if they were looking for as close to like for like, that Jonah Coleman would be the guy that would bring that kind of running style to the Denver Broncos, as opposed to last year. I know RJ Harvey, the thought was he's tough to bring down too, but it seems like they want to use him as like a change of pace or get him to the outside. So I feel like they have somebody, an archetype that they can put in if J.K. Dobbins were to get hurt again.
No, I agree when you talk about the similarities between those two. And I feel like J.K. Dobbins is kind of their do-it-all back. And I think as we get to preseason games 2 and 3, depending on how much he plays and early in the season, we'll start to see how much Coleman can truly do it all. I mean, we just have such a sliver, right, of what we can really say we saw from the young guy. But obviously, we're really liking what we're seeing so far. And I think it's hard because you don't want to forget how great RJ Harvey was in his rookie season as well. Just because this other young guy is playing really well right now, I don't think you necessarily want to push him back toward the line. But like you said, you kind of have the archetypes and the similarities between 1 and 3. And if there was an injury, knock on wood, they kind of know who might be able to take that place.
Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11, my guest. Is there something or someone at camp? You talked about Marvin Mims. Would there be anything or anyone else that you feel like you were expecting to see have a good camp or going up on a particular day? Is there anything in your mind that might be a little lacking from an individual or team standpoint?
I think my brain first went to Jahdae Barron, which is funny because he just had an incredible first preseason game in that moment with the pick 6. And I'm not sure that I can say that I had these huge expectations, just knowing where they're at in terms of the strength of their DBs and who all is, lining up in front of him. But I think it's just hard because, it's the Broncos' top pick from a season ago. And so, I tempered my expectations when they made that pick, and like, where is this guy going to fit in? How early is he going to be able to make a real impact? So it's nothing that he isn't doing, or it's not his lack of playmaking or any of that in training camp, but it's just kind of like, it's a weird situation where you don't really know where he fits in, or when he's going to be able to make his big moment or make his name in the NFL. So it's kind of another one of those moments where Vance Joseph says, that's a good problem to have, that we have this guy, as kind of a reserve, I suppose you could say. But it's just disappointing when that's what the Broncos pick, made their top pick on a year ago. So kind of TBD on that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like I would be hearing more about him. And maybe that's a credit to Riley Moss. Maybe that's the situation that we find ourselves in, that Riley Moss is really going to take a major step forward, as Vance Joseph seems to think he is. But we'll see what happens again these next couple of preseason games and into the season. How did you characterize what happened at camp yesterday in your newscast?
I was hoping. I call it a brawl. I don't think Sean Payton has issues with a brawl.
Yes. So I called it a fight. You're calling it a brawl. Sean Payton apparently disagrees with us. I feel like in listening to him today, Jess, that he actually was more irritated by it than he was trying to let on? Did you know?
I don't know. I didn't catch that vibe from him, to be honest. I mean, I felt like he answered more questions about it than I thought he would. I thought he would be kind of more on the page of that happened yesterday, let's move on. And he definitely tried to keep it toward, these are the learning lessons that we took from that moment. But I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that Sean Payton likes to see that fire on both sides of the ball. And that's what was so fun about yesterday's practice was like there was so much excitement and energy and spirit from the offense when they'd score a touchdown or the defense when there was a PBU. I think he loved to see it. And obviously, you don't cross the line. And I'm sure Sean Payton hated that Bo Nix, went to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost feel like he doesn't have too much of a problem with it as long as this doesn't become a recurring issue.
A man's head was bleeding, Jessica.
Yeah, I know.
You can't have that. So are you yourself a proponent of football brawls in training camp? It sounds like you are.
No, of course not. Of course not. That like they said yesterday, there is a very clear line. And they obviously crossed it yesterday. But I think it was kind of just a silly, if I had to guess from watching the sidelines, I think it was really kind of a silly thing where it wasn't like the defense actually like sacked Bo Nix. It was like the pocket collapsed and he kind of just got pushed, And I think it was the offensive line feeling very protective of their quarterback who's coming off of an injury, who is their hope and their dreams. And the defense, they're competitors, that's what they do. And so I think that tensions just kind of boiled over. But at the end of the day, I know how all these guys feel about each other. There is no bad beef out there on the practice fields. And I did see Bo Nix walk straight over to DJ Jones and they kind of hugged it out after all of that. So I don't think it's anything to worry about moving forward. I'm obviously not a proponent of the training camp brawls or tussles or any of that, but I can see where it came from. And practice was really fun up until that point.
Speaking of Bo, he's going to be on the field Friday night against the Green Bay Packers. Do you have an expectation? What do you want to see from him in what I would expect to be a short stint on the field? What do you want to see from Bo Nix on Friday?
Yeah, I would say limit the turnovers, hold on to the football. We know he's good at that. But, smart play, no interceptions, don't give the ball back, to the Green Bay defense or to the Green Bay offense, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I know Davis Webb said he's just looking for a clean operation. It's his first time in a while playing, but with the way that he's looked in training camp, he is a competitor. I think he's really excited to get back out there and show really what the Davis Webb offense really is supposed to look like, of course, without giving away too much, but you can't really have it without who they're game planning around, and that is Bo Nix under center. So, yeah, I think just limiting, the mistakes, showing that he's got his head on correct after taking some time off and focusing on getting back on the field. The right amount of being aggressive, but also, just the smart play. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see how he works with Davis Webb on Friday, and I don't know if we'll see Jalen Waddle. I would assume not. I think the smart play would to have him not play on Friday or maybe even the following Friday after that. But if he is in there, I'm really excited to see their connection too, because it's just been kind of a quiet camp on that front.
Have you gotten any ideas on how Davis Webb is different than Sean Payton? I mean, not personality wise, but in terms of his offense, because I think we're all kind of collectively trying to grasp at straws here to say, oh, is that a thing? Is he going to do that different than Sean Payton? Is there any difference as far as a play caller that you have seen or heard about Davis Webb that maybe you kind of want to test that theory on Friday night with Bo Nix actually under center? Yeah,
well, I think it's also, to be completely honest, it's also me grabbing at straws, trying to figure out, is this just something that they're working on in camp because they know that it was a shortcoming the last few years, or is this something that Davis Webb is serious about and really wants to, push. And that would be the involvement of the tight ends. I mean, I think that Evan Ingram has looked really well in training camp, even a little bit of Adam Troutman here and there. So I feel like they want to utilize specifically Ingram more and get him involved in the passing game. So I think that might be kind of a big difference that he is trying to kind of push this season, I suppose. But of course, I think it'll be a little bit easier for him to. I'd imagine that he was frustrated with their lack of use of the run game last season. So being able to have watched Sean Payton from a bird's eye view last year, I feel like the things that the fans were frustrated about last season, I would imagine that Davis Webb is going to try to fix some of those things this season.
Well, let's hope so. Friday night, 7:00 kickoff, right? I watched the first preseason game on KKTV. I'm assuming I can do the same thing on Friday.
Absolutely.
Good. I'm glad. I was going to clear that with you earlier, and I took a chance, and I'm glad. So, yes, KKTV 11 coming up this Friday night, but don't wait till then to be checking out KKTV 11. Jess will be on there with her training camp news and notes and anything else you might need to know in advance of Friday's preseason game. Big proponent of fighting at camp, Jessica Mendoza. Thank you for joining me.
All right, now you can stop calling me all the time. I'll see you later.
All right, I will try and stop. See you, Jess. That is Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11. Glad to have her back on the show. And if she ever gets around to answering my text messages, then she will be on quite regularly as we move closer to the football season, but also through it. Love having her on the show. 719-247-1313. Anything that Jessica said that you want to latch onto and have a bigger conversation about, I'm here for it. Also, some interesting news. Speaking of television, the Nuggets have their new broadcast team. I'll tell you about them next. Your chance to get qualified to win 4 season tickets to the Air Force football season is coming up. So stay close. In the meantime, Altitude has announced the broadcast team for the upcoming Nuggets season. It shocked a lot of people, including me, to be honest, that Chris Marlowe and Scott Hastings would no longer be a part of the Nuggets broadcast. And if I'm being honest, I was very disappointed. I like both gentlemen very much. I think Scott Hastings is great at what he does, so I was very disappointed to see that decision. And now here are the people who are going to step in. The most obvious one, Katie Wingy, is going to be the main analyst for the games. Noah Reed, who has done work, I think, with like NBC, like Peacock, some of their games. You know, so many more games are being put on national television now, or Peacock streaming. But streaming, national television, they got more and more television partners. I don't recall watching a game that Noah Reed is on. I'm just looking at his bio. I looked at his bio. So he will be the new play-by-play voice of the Denver Nuggets on television. I think Cause is still on radio, which is fantastic, given we do carry the Denver Nuggets on radio around here. Lauren Gardner is going to be back on Altitude. Remember, she got her start she was mostly on the Avs broadcast. Then she moved up to NHL Network, MLB Network. She's now back. So that's a big get, like Lauren a lot. And the studio analyst will be Jason Richardson. Yes, that Jason Richardson, Michigan State, Golden State Warriors, dunk champion, that guy. They're like, oh, didn't even know Jason Richardson was in the television business, but he is. So he will be the studio analyst alongside Lauren Gardner, pre-post, halftime, and then Noah Reed and Katie Wingy will be the broadcast team. To that end, that Jason Richardson is going to be a part of the television broadcast. Best I can tell, that's the best NBA player that the Nuggets have added this offseason. In fact, the Denver Nuggets have added more talent to their broadcast team than they have their basketball team this offseason. They've made more changes to their television crew than they have their basketball team this offseason. We'll see which one turns out to be a better product, the television broadcast or the basketball team itself. Yeah, this being about the biggest news that we've gotten out of the Denver Nuggets in terms of acquiring talent says a lot about the offseason that the Denver Nuggets have had. It's not good, the offseason for the Denver Nuggets. Not talking about the Altitude broadcast, like I said, like Katie, really like Lauren when she was with Altitude, but even when she went on to NHL Network and MLB Network. I just don't know Noah Reed, and I didn't know Jason Richardson was, so I'm waiting and seeing like you guys, but Katie and Lauren, I'm in. I know they'll do a good job. But more about me being down on the Nuggets basketball-wise than television-wise. Not as down on the television side of things as I am the team that they're going to be covering. But I will say this, at least, you know, the Cronkies are not embroiled in scandal this offseason because 3 of their brethren are. Of course, Steve Ballmer, we're still waiting to see what light to no punishment the NBA gives him for circumventing the salary cap, which, again, let me just be 100% clear about this. Circumvention of the salary cap is cheating. It is cheating. And last time I checked, we don't take kindly to teams that cheat in sports. Salary cap circumvention is cheating. Why it's going to be okay with anybody that Steve Ballmer gets off with a slap on the wrist is beyond me. They should void Kawhi Leonard's contract. That would be the most fair thing to do. Void his contract. Because I don't want to make Kawhi Leonard blameless here. He owns up. If he would have done, and it's the thing I keep coming back to, if Kawhi Leonard appears in one social media campaign for either Daktronics or Aspiration, the NBA has zero case, has no case. He did the endorsement. If you want to look at the numbers he's getting paid and say that's ridiculous for him to endorse your company, well, that's the company's decision. The fact that he was too lazy to even do one thing means that he should be punished alongside the LA Clippers. And the best way to do it, void his contract. Clippers get no benefit anymore from having Kawhi Leonard on their team. They don't get that trade return from the Toronto Raptors, and Kawhi Leonard gets to enter a market where nobody has any money. And his next deal doesn't get to be as lucrative as the deals he's had in LA, which, by the way, in my mind, circumvented the salary cap. So there's that. Then there's Mark Walter, this piece of work. So he's the one that turned around and sold the LA Lakers to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner for $2.5 billion more than he bought them for 10 months ago. And we find out it's because he's basically being accused of fraud. So he might need some money. And now it's being reported that Mark Walter tried to get money while he was still owning the LA Lakers. And by the way, he's still an owner of the LA Dodgers. But he tried to get his money out another way. And I found this to be objectively hilarious. He tried to basically cash out of the television deals for both the Dodgers and the Lakers and get a lump sum because their television partners don't want to carry those. Like, why would they not? I don't know how he thought that was going to work. Clearly it didn't. But he tried to get a lump sum out of these two television contracts in order to basically cover whatever he's, trying to cover with the money he's making on the sale of the Lakers. But what's funny about this is that the Dodgers television deal is the crux of the whole Dodger debate. Are they bad for the game? Are they good for the game? Why is this allowed to happen? How can the Dodgers be doing all of this? It starts with their television deal. When they were in bankruptcy, when the McCourts owned them, or Frank McCourt owned them, MLB said, your television deal is worth $3 billion. And Magic Johnson and Mark Walter and company went out and got 8-point-something billion for it. So they only had to pay in to the kitty based on a $3 billion valuation for their television contract, even though they're getting more than $5 billion more than that over the lifespan of the deal. That's at the heart of this. That's why the Dodgers can do what they do. And it's also why it doesn't seem that there's the inequity. The system is set up so the richest clubs pay in revenue sharing to allow the smaller markets to be able to spend more because they got more money in their pocket. Well, one of the biggest spenders, the biggest spender, doesn't have to fork over as much money as they should. That's the crux of the whole Dodger debate. And Mark Walter tried to cash out. the most sweetheart deal of a television deal. He tried to cash out to cover his own whatever fraud. So I don't know. I'm never going to say never. You know, I don't know Bob Iger. I know of him. I don't know Josh Kushner, or I didn't know of him even until he bought the LA Lakers. I'm not going to say that there's nothing, no skeletons in their closet, because that's just the way it seems like it's going. But it does seem like every day that goes by, it's probably better that Mark Walter doesn't own the LA Lakers. And it's probably better if he also cashes out from the LA Dodgers and is not a part of them anymore. And then you have Matt Ishbia, the Phoenix Suns owner, that might have to cash out of the business that reportedly he's been taking money from to finance the Suns, which is not illegal, but it might be bad business practice. It might not be what's in the best health of his mortgage company to be taking all this money and putting it into the Phoenix Suns, but it's not illegal. So he's in some trouble, when it comes to being the steward of his company. But apparently he wants to buy more of the Phoenix Suns and go from 70% to 99%. So at least the Cronkies aren't dealing with that stuff. All right. 719-715-0740. The fifth caller to 719-715-0740 is going to get qualified to win 4 season tickets to the Air Force Falcon season. Hello there. Welcome. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, the streaming apps of those two stations, or you're watching anywhere you scroll. We have a live stream each and every day. Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and Twitch. What am I missing? I think we got pretty much all of them. So we make this show abundantly available on a daily basis, and however you are finding it, I do sincerely appreciate it. If you would like to take your participation in today's show to the next level, you can call or text in at 719-247-1313. Speaking of calling in on things, congrats to Eric, who is our latest qualifier for the season tickets to the Air Force football season. Your next opportunity will be on this show tomorrow afternoon, so be listening for that. Perhaps you would like to give your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. All right, starting with story number one, Sean Payton on what he calls the Broncos' tussle yesterday at practice.
They just need to know how it's going to be officiated. And look, every one of these games, like, I said to him last night, let me know the game where we're fighting. And then obviously then we're not as concerned about winning that game. And then, I'll kind of measure up the head coach and see where we go. And, we can all get ejected, but the games are too important.
So maybe Sean Payton not as upset over the fight yesterday at a camp. He did call it a tussle. He would not characterize it as a fight, and maybe that's why he was a little bit more in a joking mood over it. But I still get the sense that Sean Payton did not love what happened. Sure, better in practice than in a game, but I think that Sean Payton and I agree on this subject. There just isn't enough time between, until a season begins to get ready for you to be fighting with your own teammates. So I don't think he was thrilled. I'll at least put it this way. I don't think he was like, heck yeah. I really don't. I don't think that he was cheering what they were doing yesterday. I think maybe there's a level of understanding from Sean Payton, and maybe he feels like at least it didn't escalate to the level that some of these inner squad practices, these joint practices have over the last couple of days. But I don't think he's a fan. And I'm not either. I think we've evolved as a human race, as a society, that we don't need to be fighting one another. Okay, you don't need to be fighting your coworkers. But speaking of that, I think if you look around the NFL, you will maybe understand why Sean Payton isn't holding joint practices, or maybe happy that he's not. Because just yesterday, in just two different places, we had fights. So we had fights with the Raiders and Texans. And then later in the joint practice, Jaden Higgins tore his ACL. So that wasn't great. And then in the Cowboys and Saints joint practice, you had Brock Reichsteiner, who is the son of former wrestler Scott Steiner, big Papa Pump kissing his biceps guy. He literally body slammed Jalen Thompson of the Dallas Cowboys. That wasn't just, he's the son of a wrestler, we're going to call it body slammed. He body slammed him. And Alvin Kamara got hurt. Separate incidents. But the idea behind the joint practice is, it's more under control than a preseason game. These preseason games, they're the wild, wild west. Guys have an infinitely better chance of getting hurt in these preseason games than these very controlled joint practices. Okay, the Saints are going to be without their running back for week 1. The Texans are going to be without one of their promising young wide receivers for the entirety of the season. Oh, and I forgot to mention also Tyler Biadasz for the LA Chargers hurt himself in the Niners-Chargers joint practice, and he is going to be out for the foreseeable future. I'm not saying that playing in preseason games is the more foolproof way of preventing injuries. It might be a more foolproof way of preventing fighting. But I just think the idea that these joint practices are so much better, like if you want to look at it because you like the work you get done better, then okay. But if anybody says that a joint practice is safer, I don't know that. I mean, just regular practices with the Denver Broncos haven't shown to be safer. Calvin Throckmorton had his head bleed. He's like Wayne Gretzky in NHL 99. I'm going to make Wayne Gretzky's head bleed. I just think you want to come up with these different ways to try to protect your players so you can get them to the beginning of the season. I'm all for innovation. I'm all for different ideas, but let's be real about this. It's football. It's the NFL. It is a violent, physical sport played by giant human beings who get very irritated when they're in the heat. You're going to have fights. You're going to have injuries. It's just the nature of the business. I just don't want to hear anymore that there's a superior way to get your team from point A, which is the beginning of training camp, to point B, which is the beginning of the season, to avoid injury and all that. There's not. There just isn't. And the joint practices in the last 24 hours have shown that is not the case. I'm not about abolishing joint practices or abolishing. I mean, I could do without the preseason if I'm being honest, but they're not going to abolish it. It's the NFL. Guys are going to get hurt. What we are doing this time of year is we just hold our breath collectively and enjoy the fact that we get fake football before real football. We get practice football before football that counts. That's all we're doing. Holding our breath and enjoying whatever morsels that we get when it comes to football. But the idea that there's a, better way to keep guys from getting hurt, it's going to happen. And I would say if you don't like fighting, joint practices are probably the worst thing to do. And I kind of feel like that's maybe why Sean Payton, in part, is not having any joint practices. No joint practice today for the Denver Broncos, just a good old intra-squad practice today, and guess who showed out?
For a play like that to develop, it's got to be a different protection because that's happening deeper down the field. You guys remember the Super Bowl where Elway came off of a boot and there was this deep, comeback post that we had never seen before, and Mike had seen the safety cut the over route, and that was kind of something that they put together during the game. And when you watched it, you had to go back and say, well, it couldn't have been a pocket protection because it's too long to hold it, and it wasn't. So that one was a different protection. And when you're a corner and you get past this 12 to 15 yard mark, you're out of the double move business. And so that's a little different to cover.
Well, playing the role today of, if you remember the play that Sean Payton is referring to, it was the play, I believe the score was 10-3 Broncos in their second Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons. And John Elway hit Rod Smith for a huge touchdown that broke open the game. Broncos never looked back, and that Super Bowl became a laugher. John Elway rides off into the sunset, that whole thing. So today, playing the role of John Elway was Bo Nix. Playing the role of Rod Smith, Jalen Waddle. But unfortunately, playing the role, of Eugene Robinson, Pat Surtain. Waddle beating Surtain today in practice. Any name beating Surtain. I don't feel like we've heard that much. So Jalen Waddle, the hype train going back down the tracks. Now that he's healthy enough to practice, back out there, he beat Pat Surtain. But in true Sean Payton fashion, please give all credit to the play design, not to Jalen Waddle's ability to beat the best corner in all of football. So reigniting the Jalen Waddle discussion. He will have a positive impact on Bo Nix. He will help. But I still contend that because of Jalen Waddle's ability at times to do what he did today in practice, teams are going to have to pay attention to him, which is great news for Courtland Sutton. I really believe that. I believe that the happiest guy, the most positively impacted member of the Denver Broncos this upcoming season for Jalen Waddle being acquired is actually Courtland Sutton before Bo Nix. Because Courtland Sutton is going to be facing, you can bracket both of those guys. You can. I don't know that we're going to see a ton of that from opposing teams. I think Courtland Sutton is going to be one-on-one. And with his height and ability to high point the football, I think it's going to work out for him. But I just think the Jalen Waddle impact is, I keep bringing this up, it's like Aaron Gordon when he was acquired by the Denver Nuggets. It didn't immediately make Aaron Gordon the best Denver Nugget player, but it allowed the Denver Nuggets players who existed on the roster to do more of what they are best at and to put them in more advantageous positions. I feel like it's going to be the same thing for the Denver Broncos with Jalen Waddle. So I wouldn't focus too much on the numbers that Jalen Waddle puts up. Maybe look and see if Courtland Sutton's numbers go up a little bit. Certainly look if Bo Nix's numbers go up a little bit. It may not be Jalen Waddle putting up monster numbers this year, but you might see somebody else on the Denver Broncos exceed their 2025 totals because Jalen Waddle is on the other side posing the threat that he is and the threat that he posed today to even the best corner in the game in Pat Surtain. Story number 3 today. Nuggets fans, you have a new television crew. We're just talking about this. A lot of people shocked that Hastings and Marlowe are no longer going to be on the broadcast. This is the new broadcast team for the Denver Nuggets. Noah Reed will be the play-by-play man. Katie Wingy will remain with the broadcast team and will be the main analyst. Lauren Gardner, who used to be at Altitude, is back at Altitude, and she will be the in-studio host. And Jason Richardson of Michigan State and Warriors fame will be the in-studio analyst. So I think the broadcast team is a little younger, and I think the studio crew is a little bit more seasoned and a little bit more experience in terms of NBA playing experience, right? Jason Richardson being an accomplished NBA player. So that's the new. Well, I mean, I got to see it before I could say I liked Marlowe, loved Scott Hastings. So the bar's in my opinion, fairly high, but let's see how it all comes together. But that was kind of a shocking decision by Altitude earlier this summer. And now we know what that crew will look like for the upcoming season. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. That is what you need to know in the world of sports today. How about what you need to know in the world of money, of finance? For that, I turn to my friend Rick Stevens of FRS Financial Group, who each day brings you his RBG report, Rick's best guess. Rick, what have you got for us today?
Well, today, Ryan, the three major indexes got a little bit of a bump after yesterday's pullback as U.S. Treasury yields dipped today. The bond market got that major reprieve after the Treasury Department announced that they would at least double the buyback operations for the long-dated bonds. Long-dated bonds are those that have at least a 10-year timeline. We also still have West Texas crude hanging out around $85 a barrel. Brent crude is also hanging in just above that $90 mark. And today's RBG, it all centers around those bond buyback. As the Treasury continues to buy back those long-term bonds, the yields are going to drop, which, as we talked about yesterday, means that markets will stabilize and continue even to tick up. So that is today's RBG.
Appreciate it, Rick. That's Rick Stevens of FRS Financial Group right here in Colorado Springs. Start planning your future today at frsfinancialgroup.com.
Products and investment services offered through LPL Financial, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. FRS Financial Group is a name used by independent advisors associated with LPL Financial, LLC.
Coming up next, one of the more disgruntled NFL stars is now extremely gruntled. I'll tell you who after this. Friday night, it's Denver and Green Bay in preseason number 2. If you're looking preseason game number 2, if you're looking for a place to watch it, how about Trainwreck, couple blocks south of Widener Field downtown? I will be there doing this show live from 3 to 6. Kickoff is at 7. I'll bring goodies to give away while I am there. But the main attraction is Trainwreck. One of the largest screens you're going to see anywhere in Southern Colorado. Great outdoor patio type area, sand volleyball pits, great food. One of my favorite places to go. So I was thrilled to hear that they would like me to come out and do the show on Friday. So hopefully I'll see you out there. Friday afternoon, Trainwreck. I'll be there from 3 to 6. Denver, Green Bay kicks off at 7. Speaking of the National Football League, Vita Vea, once disgruntled, is now extremely gruntled. And to mix quotes from different shows, that's what the money's for. Vita Vea agreeing to a 1-year, $30 million deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now he is not going to ask for a trade anymore. Now, you have to dig a little bit deeper here. The Bucs aren't handing Vita Vea $30 million. They are handing him essentially $6 million in new money. That's all it takes. That's all Vita Vea wanted. Just a few $6 million, and he'd be fine and want to stay in Tampa Bay for another year. So that is... But that's good because I just proclaimed yesterday that I'm back in with the Bucs because Baker's like, we're going to shock people. And I'm like, yeah, Baker, I'm in on that. And then my question right after, I remember saying it, what does Vita Vea think of the whole situation? Because I kind of, to be in on the Bucs, I still need Vita Vea on the team, and he will be. So you have Vita Vea's happy because he's $6 million richer than he would have been this season. Baker Mayfield is not getting any new money, so he's upset, but he's not asking for a trade. So I like Baker Mayfield with the chip on his shoulder. So I am back in on the Bucs in the South. I am. But doesn't it feel like this is it for Tampa Bay? Like this is it, and then here comes the rebuild. Here comes the Tampa Bay Bucs on the clock in the next couple of years, going for whoever the hot new quarterback is. Maybe Arch Manning's going to stay at Texas another year. But this feels like it's it. This is the end of the line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This group in Tampa. Because I wouldn't put past Baker Mayfield, and this is the risk that Jason Light and the Glazers are running here. Like, I wouldn't put it past Baker Mayfield to ball out this season. Bucks come to him with a fresh new contract, and him like, nope, I'm out. Especially if, Vita Vea is going to leave and Mike Evans is already gone. Levante David retired. Like, Baker Mayfield might look around and be like, yeah, well, this isn't really these aren't my guys. This team is in transition and they disrespected me. So I'm going to go somewhere else. Where might that somewhere be? Where could I see Baker Mayfield? This is going to sound a little out there, but I think I'm on solid ground here. Back in Carolina. How about that? How about that for a full circle? Now, I know the fullest of circles is Cleveland. Not going there. I'm not going that far. But how about, because they have Canales as their head coach now. Baker loves Dave Canales. and he can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice a year. Like, doesn't that feel like a Baker thing to do? I could see it. I mean, Cleveland, I feel like in Cleveland we're heading for they're going to be in the quarterback business. I still don't understand. I thought it would be better with Monken, but now it's like first it was Stefanski, now it's Monken. Like, I don't know. If they're serious about throwing out Deshaun Watson for week 1, if they're serious about this, then I gotta say, I gotta be out on Shedeur. And I know there's the, Sam Darnold, but like you're gonna have 2 different head coaches, both pretty well respected, and both of them are gonna look at Shedeur and go like, yeah, this isn't my guy. And Todd Monken is going to go as far, like Todd Monken has coached Lamar Jackson. Like, he knows what good quarterbacking looks like. If he's really going to say that he'd rather have Deshaun Watson than Shedeur Sanders, then that's got to say something. I'll fully believe it when I see it. I don't care how much money Deshaun Watson makes. I don't think Browns fans want to see Deshaun Watson play. I think the NFL in totality would not want to see Deshaun Watson play. And look, I don't, and I still don't believe that they have a much better chance of winning with Deshaun Watson than Shedeur Sanders. But now we're on to coaching staff number 2 that is looking away from Shedeur Sanders. And I wouldn't put Todd Monken and Kevin Stefanski at the very top of the list. It's not like we're talking about Shanahan and Sean McVay both looking at Shedeur and saying, no, I would trust their judgment more than Kevin Stefanski, who threw out Tua the other night. But I think Stefanski and Monken are bright. One coaching staff, okay, maybe not a fit for this, that, and the other reason. 2 coaching staffs not fit, then that's something. So we'll see. But I don't know if it's the Cleveland media or what it is, but I can't make heads or tails about what's going on up there. It just looks like absolute chaos. And look, I've covered, quarterback training camp battles. We went through one every year in Denver. Like, I know what they look like. And I know the kind of conversation that comes out. It never, whether it's Locke and Teddy Bridgewater or any of these quarterbacks, it was never as messy. It just looks so messy up there in Cleveland. Like, what is going on up there? I sure hope that they're not looking to Deshaun Watson, because you play Shedeur, who I still believe has NFL talent. I believe he can be a NFL starting quarterback. I believe he can hold down a job until a better thing comes along. That's kind of what I think Shedeur would be in the NFL. And if Shedeur is, not that, then it just increases the likelihood that you're going to have your choice of quarterbacks come April. And I don't think they have a much better chance of winning with Deshaun Watson, but we've seen the best of Deshaun Watson. Like, that's how I would put it. We've seen the best of Deshaun Watson. I don't know that we've seen the best of Shedeur Sanders. And you're in Cleveland, like, you're absolutely the 4th best team in that division. Like, without equivocation. And I like some of the pieces that Cleveland has. I think they have a foundation. I thought they made out pretty well with the Myles Garrett trade. They did not get the best player in the deal, but I like Jared Verse a lot. I like some of their skill players on the offensive side, especially at the tight end position. Like, I don't think the cupboard is completely bare, but the fact of the matter is they are fourth in that pecking order. And they don't, unless Rodgers gets hurt or Joe Burrow gets hurt, there's no upward mobility. And that's what drives me crazy about NFL teams. Like, just acknowledge where you are, accept it with dignity, and act properly. The Browns aren't beating out anybody in that division. So do what teams that have no chance of finishing any better than fourth place do, and they start the younger quarterback where you haven't seen the best of him. You try to develop them, and then if you stink, like I think the Browns are going to this year, then you get rewarded. Look at the Raiders. Look at what they have in Fernando Mendoza. This guy's already a bigger star in Vegas than Wayne Newton. That's a dated reference. Then Chris Angel, Mind Freak. Then the Thunder Down Under. Never been. But I've been inundated with advertising because of the Excalibur. Boy, how do I dig myself out of this one? I tried out once, okay? Just once I tried out. They said, not at this time. I'm not a fit. But, you know, get a tan and add about 20 pounds of muscle and then call him back. So I'm, as you can tell, if you're watching the live stream, I'm well on my way. But they love Fernando. And you kind of feel like it's not going to take the Raiders that long to be a thing. It's not the draft lottery. Like, you're guaranteed a high draft pick. I don't get it. But whatever. No one's ever asked me to run an NFL team. What else? Oh, we got a text in from Ryan. Very excited about Jason Richardson being added to the group. I think that's because Jason Richardson is a Spartan. Am I correct in that, Ryan? Jason Richardson to the Nuggets. Let's go. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see it. I mean, it's certainly different than they had Chris Dempsey in there, who I think is very sharp. And I'm not one to say, like, one of my favorite Monday Night Football announcers was Tony Kornheiser. I thought he was great on the Monday Night Football broadcast. I'm not somebody that says, oh, a professional athlete has to hold down certain positions on a broadcast team. But it is a different dynamic than what they've had in studio. Now they'll have somebody, and not just a former NBA player, a well-accomplished former NBA player. So I'm intrigued by it. See how it all comes together here. I guess once again, I'm more eager to see what the Nuggets TV broadcast crew looks like than I am the Denver Nuggets basketball team. 719-24/7. 13-13. I think it's a good time to hit the brakes back after this. Tonight, we got a little midweek soccer for you. Switchbacks FC in the desert taking on Phoenix Rising. It'll be an 8 o'clock kickoff. You know, I'm seeing a lot of discussion on social media about where the watch party is going to be, what streaming service it's going to be on tonight. And I'm thinking the whole time as I'm watching this, you know, every match is on Extra Sports 1300. Maybe you have to look around and get a new subscription to be able to watch the Switchbacks game this week or that week. Not to listen. You don't even need a subscription. We're free. Download the app. Listen along. Whether you find the actual video stream of the game or not, listen along. If you find it, then turn down the volume and listen to Roland and I. Promise you'll have a fun time. Switchbacks making a couple of moves this week. Sam Williams got recalled by Chicago Fire, which is kind of a bummer because I thought Sam was a good fit with the Switchbacks, really started to come on, and he filled in very well when Speedy Williams was out to begin the season. And then because, you know, Speedy got healthy, and I think Alan McCann looked at it and is like, I can't put Speedy in for Sam, and he's been playing them both together, and they've been very good. But that's the nature of a loan. The parent club can say, give me that, and you got to give them back. So Sam Williams back to the Chicago Fire, but they make 2 more loan deals with the Colorado Rapids. And the one that's got me the most intrigued is Bryce Jamison. So Bryce Jamison, 20-year-old winger, Rapids paid, I think at the time, a record fee to get Bryce Jamison from Orange County in the USL Championship. I'll confirm that by tonight's broadcast. But they liked him a lot, and they got him as a youngster. He was good. He's good at Orange County. It's kind of a pain to the Switchbacks over the last couple of years. So I'm just thinking, now he hasn't put up big goal totals. I think his career high is 5. But with the pace that he has on the wing, in the Switchback system, like that, this could be fun. And this could be a big pickup for down the stretch for Switchbacks FC. And you look at that position group and you're like, man, how many do you need? You have, you know, Jonas who could play out there. You have Yosuke Hanya, who's been a staple in the starting 11 until recently. Juan Tejada can play out there. You had so many that you sent Levante Johnson on a loan deal because you couldn't get him playing time, and now you're going to bring in another winger. But look, I remember the years where the Switchbacks had 0 depth, and now they have, and I'm glad that they have depth. I'm glad that Alan McCann has options, and they need, and even when Alan joined me on the show on Monday, and you'll hear that interview if you missed it on the pregame show tonight, like Alan wasn't thrilled with his team's ability to finish chances. They set a USL championship record Saturday with 40 shots. Not enough of them were on target, and even the ones on target, not enough of them went into the back of the net. So if Bryce Jamison's going to help do that, that's what the Switchbacks, the 2 things right now that I think that the Switchbacks need the most here, and Roland and I will talk more about it tonight down the stretch of this season. I think they need Patrick Berner back on the back line, get him healthy, because the group, when it was burnt, there was a moment there. It's when Garvin Matusla came back from the World Cup and paired him with Talon Maples. Patrick Berner was on one side, Aiden Rocha on the other. I thought that back 4 was terrific. And then Patrick got hurt. and it's been kind of a rotating cast of characters. Isaiah Foster was in there, got hurt in Spokane. He's probably going to be out for a while. So they need Patrick Burner back to solidify that back line in front of either Christian Herrera or Colin Shuttler, whoever is in goal. And they just need, whether it's guys that they have on their roster or Bryce Jamison, they need guys to finish their chances. The underlying metrics say that the Switchbacks should be the highest scoring team in this league, and maybe by a comfortable margin. The number of shots they generate, the number of touches inside the opponent's box, the number of shots on goal that they get, their goal numbers should be higher. And when we get to the postseason and it's one and done, you lose, you're out. And how tight things get in the playoffs. I mean, you know this as well as I do if you're a Switchbacks fan. You know, how many times did we see either the Switchbacks win a playoff game or the Switchbacks lose a playoff game and it's 1-0 or 2-1? As many opportunities that as the Switchbacks generate, as dangerous as they look, that it's going to go down. That level's going to go down in the postseason. It just is. We see it in every sport. Teams play tighter. They focus a little bit more on the defensive side of things. Now, you still feel good about the Switchbacks' ability to create enough chances, but they got to have guys to finish those chances. And I thought Corey Bennett got a little bit more involved than he had been the last couple of weeks, so that's a positive sign. Hopefully tonight they really get Corey back on the ball, and because he's their most reliable finisher when it comes to scoring goals. Jonas Fjellberg has been outstanding. He's probably been the best Switchbacks player for a month and a half now, but even he hasn't finished all of his chances, and he'll be the first to tell you that he needs to. They need players that are going to finish the chances. They're generating enough. Got to finish them tonight, especially tonight and moving forward. Like, it's not early in the season anymore. It's going to be more and more difficult for this team to move up the standings. I mean, case in point, look at Saturday. They pick up 3 points. They don't move an inch. They don't move a single spot. They got no bump, no benefit for having won a match because the teams in front of them are taking care of business. That's the way it's going to be through the rest of this season. It's going to be very incremental moves up the table, and there will be nights where the Switchbacks will win and you'll be excited and happy, and you look at the standings and you say, what the heck is going on here? Why haven't they moved up? It's because everybody else is raising their game. Everybody else is playing with desperation. So there's still time for this team to get comfortably into the playoff picture. The top four is not out of the realm of possibility, but you got to be consistently stringing together results because you just never know the night when things elsewhere in the league are going to break your way and you're going to be able to jump up 2 or 3 spots. And tonight, we could complain about the schedule, and trust me, we do. This Wednesday, Saturday stuff is absolute nonsense. But look, you have an opportunity to pick up 6 points this week. Not everybody has this opportunity. And tonight, I know the match is in Phoenix. Switchbacks played well last time they were down there, and Phoenix is beneath them in the standings. They're a better team than Phoenix. This, like Saturday against Birmingham, is one of those games that you look at and you're like, this Switchbacks team, yes, travel and a busy week and everything, they should win this match. They should get a result here. So this is a big week, but a big night for Switchbacks FC. We'll see if the new guys are in the lineup this evening, but Bryce Jamison, that's a That's an exciting pickup. It's an exciting pickup. And he's now playing in a system and playing with a team that I think can get a lot out of him. And just at Orange County, I don't know if the style was most conducive to Bryce Jamison's success. So we'll see what he does here on a loan spell with Switchbacks FC, and we'll see if they're healthier this evening, especially when it comes to number 97. So Switchbacks and Phoenix Rising coming up on Extra Sports 1300. Roland and I will be on the air at 7:30 with the pregame and 8 o'clock kickoff for that one. And then the Switchbacks will be home on Saturday night taking on El Paso Locomotive. No, I don't know if Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso is going to be there, but yes, that is the team that he plays for. I will exhaust all my sources trying to figure it out between now and Saturday. But El Paso Locomotive coming into Widener Field Saturday night at 7. I'll be bringing my tickets to that match out with me to Trainwreck on Friday, where I'll be doing the show. So you have a chance to win some Switchbacks tickets while I am out there. Now, one last item of business before I bid you adieu for about 90 minutes, and then I'll be back with you for the Switchbacks. I want to talk to you about Game Day Men's Health winning this morning, the game day. My routine blood draw, they're going to test my blood. Last time, my results were fantastic, and I expect nothing less this time around. But look, it's a little thing, but to be able to get in there, be seen when my appointment is, and get out of there to the rest of my day. Not that I don't enjoy being around the fine folks at Game Day, because I do. Lily, the receptionist, she is terrific, and their staff is great. But they know that we lead busy lives, and they take a lot of pride in getting you in, getting whatever it is that you're coming to see them, getting that done, and getting you on to the rest of the day. And I would advise you, if you're, you hear these ads and it's like, if something is wrong with you, right? Well, something doesn't have to be wrong with you. We all want to optimize ourselves, all right? We all want to be at our peak. Well, Game Day can help you do that as well. So set up your appointment today, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Appreciate your patronage. Hopefully you stick around for Switchbacks at 7:30.